Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga. Today we begin chapter 3, the threefold life. And I have it on page 20. With, as always, our beloved Ranga. Thank you, Ranga.
So, we start reading the new chapter, the threefold life. So, just so that you are clear right from the beginning, he will tell you that man has a choice of three lives, three types of life, quality of life. One is the bodily life, which is the very ordinary average man. He lives in his body and the vital, uses the mind to a certain extent, but not really for knowledge. The second is a mental life, those who are intellectual and those who are looking for knowledge without necessarily applying it in life. Just the thirst for knowledge, that's mental life. Scholars, philosophers, scientists, yogis maybe, mental life. The last one is a spiritual life. You go beyond the mind. So these are the three lives possible for man. So we start reading now. Nature then, being an evolution or progressive self-manifestation of an eternal and secret existence with three successive forms as her three steps of ascent, we have as a condition of all our activities these three mutually interdependent possibilities: the bodily life, the mental existence, and the veiled spiritual being, which is in the involution the cause of the others, and in the evolution their result. Preserving and perfecting the physical, fulfilling the mental, it is nature's aim, and it should be ours to unveil in the perfected body and mind the transcendent activities of the spirit. As the mental life does not abrogate but works for the elevation and better utilization of the bodily existence, so too spiritual should not...
I have for the elevation and better utilization of the bodily existence.
Okay, I don't have that.
Well, there are many things that are different here. I've found 3 or 4 already.
All right. So the spiritual should not abrogate but transfigure our intellectual, emotional, aesthetic and vital activities. So it's a small para, and Srimati is saying that, okay, we'll go through and stress the words, importance of the words. Nature then, being an evolution or progressive self-manifestation of an eternal and secret existence. So, the secret existence is Satchidananda, Sat Chit Ananda. You can say God, or you can say, if you follow the Indian system, it is a substance, it is consciousness, it is force and Ananda, all mixed into one. It's not 4 different things, it's one, which manifests itself in the physical world. And when it manifests itself, it follows the law of multiplicity and movement. Itself unmoving, it becomes movement in the physical world. Itself one, it becomes the many of the physical world. Itself formless, it becomes all the multiple forms in the universe. So that's the evolution that he's talking about. When you manifest, that is what has to happen. And he's saying these 3 successive forms. Which are the 3 successive forms? The previous paragraph, previous chapter.
The 3 steps of ascent?
That's right. Body, that is matter, life, that is prana, and mind. So those are the 3 steps of nature, and according to that, nature is now trying to go beyond the mental life. an eternal and secret existence with 3 successive forms as the 3 steps of ascent. You have any missing text there? No.
And we have consequently, as the condition of all our activities.
Okay. So there is a missing text. So we have as a consequence the condition of our activities, these 3 mutually interdependent possibilities. They depend on each other. The bodily life, the mental existence, and the veiled spiritual being, which is in the involution the cause of the others. In the involution is the downward descent into manifestation. God manifests himself in the physical world, so he is the cause. And then of the others, and in the evolution, their result. So God is the one that is creating the manifestation and the physical world, and in the upward evolution, he is the goal and the result. So this is what Swami is saying. Preserving and perfecting the physical, fulfilling the mental, it is nature's aim, and it should be ours, to unveil in the perfected body and mind the transcendent activities of the spirit. So, the highest is the transcendent. It transcends the universe and the individuality. So, it goes beyond. So, that activity of the physical, that means perfect force, perfect knowledge, perfect ananda, should also be incorporated in your body-mind life here on earth. That's what he's saying. It should be preserving and perfecting. The physical, look at the word preserving. In other words, it should not decay. Death should not be a law. Preserving, you have to preserve the body. So preserve, he has not said eternally, but because the supramental being may choose to manifest himself or choose to dissolve his body by his will, not by necessity. Because he may feel that the work which I have done is done and I can go on to another work. He can dissolve that body by will, not by compulsion. We are subject to death.
So how does self-born correlate with this? Self-born with preserving, perfecting.
Our body is caused by matter. Our vital is caused by the universal plane of prana. There is a cause for ourselves. But who is causing the existence of God? Nobody. He himself. That is why it's self-born. He doesn't depend on anybody. He himself is born. This is quite a thing for the mind to understand. Everything has a cause in the physical world. How can there be something caused without cause coming into existence?
But in Savitri, there are 2 lines where he says, a conscious frame, a self-born force was here. Yeah. And then he says about Ashwapati, adept of the self-born unfailing line.
That's right. The self-born is exactly that. He himself has brought himself into existence. The more we think about it, it's really a puzzle. It's very difficult to understand this at this level. Because everything in the physical world has a cause. How can something come into existence without a cause?
Be causeless. Yes.
Self-born.
I do have a question in the next sentence.
Okay. So, preserving. So, you are not subject to death. Perfecting. You can have a body which is not subject to death, but it may not be perfect. So, even perfect it should be. What does it mean? It means it is not subject to the limitation of the body as we understand it. There is no need for disease. There is no need for fatigue. There is no need for any limitation. It can do what it wants. I can't go from here to New York immediately. But the supramental body can do that. It has the will to do that. It has the power to do that. Teleportation.
Yes.
That's right. So, that's what it means by perfecting. Okay? Preserving and perfecting the physical, fulfilling the mental. What does it mean, fulfilling the mental? What does the mental want? What is its goal? Knowledge. So, you get full knowledge. Everything that the mind needs to know, it knows. Knowledge fulfills the mind. Infinite knowledge, not scientific knowledge, spiritual knowledge and infinite knowledge. Then we come to fulfilling the mental. It is nature's aim, and it should be ours, to unveil in the perfected body and mind the transcendent activities of the spirit. The transcendent, we have already seen that the divine can take three positions. He can be individual. The divine can be there in each individual human being. That is the individual divine. Then there is a cosmic divine. The divine can be there in the universe. Everything in the universe, he can be there. It's quite different. Then he can be beyond the universe. That's a transcendent. That's his native home, from where he causes the manifestation of the universe. So, whatever is the perfection in the transcendent, that we should be able to reproduce here in the body-mind life. That's what he's saying.
And what is the subtle physical plane in relation to the transcendent?
Self?
Subtle physical plane
Oh.
in relation to the transcendent.
Oh. Okay. The transcendent is the cause of the universe. But when there is a manifestation, it comes from a perfect knowledge and a perfect omniscience and an omnipotence. So it creates limitations of itself. Supermind creates overmind, overmind creates intuitive mind, illumined mind, higher mind, and then mind, life, body. This is the parallel worlds which exist independent of anybody. Even if you are not there and I am not there, these planes exist universally. This is then the evolution starts from a different level. And so the subtle physical is the involution just before matter. This is a plane that exists by itself, whether we are there or not. Okay? It is self-existent. Just like matter is there. If I am there or you are there, it doesn't matter. Matter is there. Exactly in the same way, subtle physical, vital, mental, all these planes are there. And there is a sort of infinity. There is no perversion in these planes. There is no perversion. There may be a limitation, but not a perversion. But when you are starting from the other side in the evolution, the involution, the worlds it's a parallel series of planes. And in the evolution, it's a series of planes, but it is going from ignorance to knowledge. So there are sort of two planes, parallel planes. That's what it says.
So when Mother speaks of Sri Aurobindo's home in the subtle physical,
that's right.
it's that parallel universe.
Yes. So if you go to a certain subtle physical level here, your consciousness rises, you can access the inner being, which is the subtle physical. The subtle physical is all in the inner being. And the outer being, the body-mind life, is the evolution. And your consciousness can rise progressively, just as we said the other day, it's like a 7-storied building which you can build. But that's an evolution. But the other worlds are already there, pre-existent. When God manifests himself, they are there. But here, they are there, that they have to be built individually. And they have to build also on a cosmic scale. See, right in the beginning, matter was there, but there was no life. Then life came into the cosmos. It was built at a particular time. Then mind also came in. So now, the supermind also will be there. So these have to be built in the evolution. But the other ones are not built. They are already eternally present. So that's the subtle physical.
Thank you.
Okay? So, perfected body and mind, the transcendent act of the spirit. To put it very simply, man has to manifest God nature. Man has to become. God has become man, veiled man. He has veiled himself in man, but now we have to remove all the veils and get the consciousness of the divine in body, mind, life. Okay? So, and he is using the word unveil. Why? Because the body is a veil, the mind is a veil, and the vital also is a veil. All these planes of consciousness which are there, you can consider them veils, because at each step on the downward journey, there is a diminution and a density that occurs. So it's a veil. But in the upward there, you discover them as worlds which are superior to each other. As you keep going up, it becomes more and more like the veil of the mind has dropped, you go to the higher mind. The veil of the higher mind has dropped, you go to the illumined mind. So these veils keep dropping when you go up, but when you are coming down from the veils go on increasing. They're like clothes. So that's why he's saying veils. As the mental life does not abrogate, but works for the elevation and better utilization of the body, so too the spiritual should not abrogate, but transfigure our intellectual, emotional, aesthetic and vital activities. This is a very interesting sentence.
That's why I wanted to ask you about it. Yes.
Okay. So, he is saying that when nature is in evolution, going on producing one by one, going up from matter to life to mind, it is not rejecting matter. Life and mind are combining and you have animal creatures. When man comes into being with a mind, man has not rejected body and vital. So he's saying if nature does not do that, why should we do that? And that's exactly what the ascetic is doing. Mm-hmm. The ascetic says, I have no use for the body, mind, life. They are veils and useless things, so I want to go only to the consciousness. I want to go to the transcendent. So they say, if he wants to do that, fine, no problem. But I would prefer to even change body, mind, life. I don't want to reject them, because nature has not done that. And nature's wisdom is perfect. So why should we also reject why has God created mind, life and body? Surely not to be rejected. So we should do that. He says that. That's what he says. So, and as the mental life does not abrogate but works for the elevation and better utilization of the body, so too the spiritual should not abrogate but transfigure our intellectual, emotional, aesthetic and vital activities. Mental life does not abrogate but works for the elevation and better utilization of the bodily life. Very clear. At the animal level, there is disease, there is death, and there is not necessarily any longevity. But when mind comes, mind creates medicines for man. He finds out the cause of diseases and conquers them. So he is using his mind to make the elevate and better utilize the bodily life. That's what it means. And science is also doing the same for even our conveniences. Conquering time and space, he says. Time and space are shortening. Mind does that. Now I can go from here to America in 24 hours. Maybe even less if it's continuous.
22, perhaps.
22 hours. Whereas earlier you had to sail 6 months to go. So, the mind is doing all that. So, the mind is improving things, elevating and utilizing better the bodily existence. So, he says we also should do the same. When you go to the spiritual level, do the same. Use the spirituality to make life better, mind better, body better. Okay? So, in fact, throughout you will see these 3 chapters. We are in chapter 3. Beginning also, the first 2 chapters, he is saying, we will follow what nature is doing. So,
I like the fact that he puts aesthetic in.
Yes,
Aesthetic
So-
and vital activity.
that's right. Emotional, aesthetic, and vital activities. So, what's the difference between emotional, aesthetic, and vital? Intellectual is clear. Okay, the pure mind, not the the intellectual mind is the pure mind, not the vital mind and the physical mind. Emotional and aesthetic, there are emotional being is a higher vital. There is a lower vital also, which is almost physical. So those are the vital activities. Aesthetic, usually in the mental vital life, there are two main trends: ethical and aesthetic. Ethical, the mind is more dictating terms. Aesthetic, the emotional is dictating terms. But there is a combination of mind and life. Okay? So that completes the first paragraph. So we should not reject body, mind, life, he says, but we should transform them. We go to the next para?
Yes.
Okay. For man, the head of terrestrial nature, the sole earthly frame in which her full evolution is possible is a triple birth. He has been given a living frame in which the body is the vessel and life the dynamic means of a divine manifestation. So, the triple birth, he is going to explain to us what it is, but he is saying we have a living frame. The body is the frame, but a house can have a frame which is not living. But we have a living frame, okay, in which the body is the vessel and life the dynamic means for the divine manifestation. So, this is like any electric motor or a car, okay. A car has got a body and it's got an engine which powers the body. So that's exactly, if life is not there, our body will be dead. We must be very careful. We mustn't think that the soul is what gives life to the body. No. We must be very careful. It's when the vitality, when the life element goes out, that is the prana. When that goes out, there is death. Even then there is no death, because the vital can come back. Okay. So, there is the soul can go out much earlier. I'll give you an interesting incident. Because many people feel when the soul goes out, there is death. That's not true. It's when the vital goes out that there is death. In fact, every night, we are going out of our body. Your consciousness goes out of the body, goes to different worlds, and then comes back into the body. So, I'll tell you an interesting story which makes this very clear. There was an ashramite who was in hospital. He was actually one of the children are still living in the ashram. Chitra Di and Amita Di and all, their father. He was in the hospital.
Johar.
Nolini Sen. His name was Nolini Sen.
Nolini Sen.
He was a teacher in the school. A very fine gentleman. Okay. So, he was in hospital and he was on life support systems. Then, one day he passed away. So, they went and reported to mother that mother, Nolini Sen has passed away. She said, I know. His soul came to me 2 days ago. So, the soul has gone 2 days ago, but the body is still living. Okay? So, it's not when the soul goes out that there is death. There is death when the vitality goes out.
When I was very young, I would fly every night someplace, different places. But after youth, no more. At least that I'm aware of.
Okay, so for man, the head of terrestrial nature, the sole earthly frame in which her full evolution is possible, is a triple birth. He has been given a living frame in which the body is the vessel and life the dynamic means of a divine manifestation. His activity is centered in a progressive mind. He has used the word progressive mind. The mind that seeks for knowledge is progressive. The mind that thinks of how to do things well and all that, that's not. There is a practical mind, there is a vital mind which gives you desires, and there is a progressive mind, which you can also use the word the pure mind or the intellectual mind or reason. These are the words he uses. Only for pure knowledge, okay? Without necessarily any application in the physical world, which aims at perfecting itself as well as the house in which it lives, in which it dwells, and the means of life that it uses, and is capable of awaking by a progressive self-realization to its own true nature, as form of the spirit. I read the para and then we come back. He culminates in what he always really was, the illumined and beatific spirit which is intended at last to irradiate life and mind with its now concealed splendors. So, we have read up to the progressive mind, okay? So, he has a body, he has a vital, and he has a mind. So, he has a choice of these three. Most human beings, as told you earlier, don't have a progressive mind. They have only a vital mind and a physical mind, which aims at perfecting itself as well as the house in which it dwells. Which is the house? The body. Okay? And the means of life? The prana, your vital being, that it uses. And is capable of awaking by a progressive self-realization to its own true nature as a form of the spirit. So when you are in the mind can, the mental Purusha can realize itself as a spiritual Purusha. That's what he's saying.
So he gives great importance here to the mind.
Yes, but when he's saying that, he means mind right up to the overmind and supermind. He used the word mind. He says all these are mind planes. The supermind is different. The supermind is not mind plane anymore. It goes beyond. But when he says mind with an M cap, he means all these also. I'll tell you why. Because in many places, spiritual people, when he comments on autobiographical notes, there's a book called Autobiographical Notes. And there he comments on many others and he says, oh, he had a mental realization. But mental realization means in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay? Not the supramental, that's what it means. Jiddu Krishnamurti, many others, mental realization. Mental realization, some people think that he is talking of our normal mind. That's not a realization. The realization is the spiritual planes of consciousness. This is level 2. Level 1 is our body-mind life. Level 2 is the spiritual planes of consciousness. And level 3 is the supramental.
So, can you speak a little about the mental realization?
Yes. It starts when you silence your mind and your consciousness rises to the higher mind level. So there already you are mentally realized.
Ah.
Yeah. The higher mind.
I see.
The higher mind is that which your mind is silent and you become a witness. And you're just watching peacefully, calmly. You're watching without being affected by body and vital. That's a higher mind. So, right up to the overmind, these are all mental realizations. Even Sri Aurobindo's overmind level also was a mental realization, he would say. Okay? So, so that's what he's saying here.
If mind is a silent, body is able to work.
The body will continue to work, body will continue to eat, everything. The consciousness is up there. That brings us back very interestingly to the consciousness levels. Okay? So, there is a spiritual, your consciousness has become now a spiritual consciousness. It is lodged in the, just like if you have got a 5-story building, instead of living on the ground floor, you are going to the 3rd floor. But the first floor remains, the ground floor remains. So the body has a consciousness of its own and it continues to live. We have discussed this body consciousness. If you want, I'll remind you again about this body consciousness. Then there is a vital consciousness. There is a mental consciousness. Thoughts are coming into it. It is working. It's like a machine. The body-mind life is a machine. It continues to work. But you are not doing anything. You are watching the machine working. That's why you are a witness. You are only a witness.
It is the witness consciousness.
Yes.
But sometimes if I silent mind, body feel inertia and dullness.
That is in the beginning. That's in the beginning that happens. Because when your consciousness goes out, there is a sort of, he says, but when it comes back, okay, you feel pins and needles in the body. And there is also a sort of a stone-like feeling and a stiffness that comes in the body when your consciousness goes out. Many questions are there. Letters, he has made this clear. That happens. There is a rigidity in the body. That happens. So, in the house in which it dwells, and the means of life that it uses, and is capable of awaking by progressive self-realization. The mental Purusha realizes that it is divine in nature as a form of the spirit. So it's the mental Purusha that goes up. Okay? In fact, Srimdo's whole yoga starts from the mental Purusha. The others they're starting from the body, mind, life, but he says we will start our yoga by the mental Purusha. I will take myself as the mental Purusha. And then we start our journey. So, that is the one that realizes that it can be essentially divine. The mental Purusha. As a form of the spirit. He culminates in what he always really was, the illumined and beatific spirit. Illumined knowledge, beatific Ananda, spirit, which is intended at last to irradiate life and mind with its now concealed splendors. So, the spirit, the illumined and beatific spirit, you could say in a certain way, your psychic being which is there inside, it is trying to illuminate you and irradiate you. The word irradiate is very interesting. It is sending out its rays all over. But when you realize what you are, then it irradiates mind, life and body. Okay? And that's what you really are. You are the spirit. And it is intended at last to irradiate life and mind with its now concealed splendors. What are those splendors? Omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence. So that's what is the intention of evolution in nature. And since this is the plan of the divine energy in humanity, the whole method and aim of our existence must work by the interaction of these three elements in the being. As a result of their separate formulation in nature, man has opened to him a choice between three kinds of life. The ordinary material existence, a life of mental activity and progress, and the unchanging spiritual beatitude. Okay? But he can, as he progresses, combine these three forms, resolve their discords into a harmonious rhythm, and so create in himself the whole Godhead, the perfect man. Yeah, very small para, but we'll see the word that he is using. Let us see why he is using those words. Even today in the morning, I came across a word. Okay, let me see what that word was. Yeah, now I remember. In Life Divine, he says that the materialist is thinking, I am talking of the importance attaches to words, okay, and the accurate way he uses the words. We read there was a sentence which says, he says that the materialist thinks that the Physical world is the only reality. Then he says, but obviously their pretension is faulty. Now the child asked me, how can it be a pretension? Okay? How can it be a pretension when he really believes? There is no pretense. So we looked at the dictionary. The first meaning of pretension is a misapprehension, not the right understanding of things. Pretension, not the pretense. So he has used it absolutely correctly. Pretension is a stated statement. A stated statement. So the statement that they are making is a wrong statement. The pretension is used in that sense. He is very accurate. Very often we say, oh, why is Sridhar using this word? You go back to the dictionary, you will see that that's the first meaning. So, now, that's why I'm saying we look at the words. Since this is the plan of the divine energy in humanity, now here you are. Again, why is he saying in humanity? Why doesn't he say in the universe? Because that divine energy will not operate for a divine life in the animal. It's only in humanity. That's why in humanity. The whole method and aim of our existence must work by the interaction of these three elements in the being. What are the three elements? He has told you already. Body, life and mind. Okay? So as a result of their separate formulation in nature, man has opened to him a choice between three kinds of life. The ordinary material existence, a life of mental activity and progress, mental activity and progress, and the unchanging spiritual beatitude. Okay? So, the material existence is ordinary. The mental activity is always towards progress, very clear. But the spiritual beatitude is unchanging because it's perfect. It doesn't need change. It's a static condition. The physical world is constantly in movement, but the self, there is no movement. It's immutable and static. So, very clear words he is using. So, unchanging spiritual beatitude. But he can, as he progresses, combine these three forms, resolve their discords into a harmonious rhythm, and so create in himself the whole Godhead, the perfect man. Man, when he is perfect, he becomes God. He can become the whole Godhead.
And the argument of the West is that man can come close to God but not become God.
That's right. Whereas in the Indian system, Indian understanding, you are essentially God, but you are covered up with all sorts of veils. You can call them veils, you can call them sheaths. That's the law. So you have to unsheath yourself and realize who you really are. Okay? But you can become the divine. You can become the divine. Yogis become the divine in their consciousness, but not in their body-mind life. But Sridhar wants the body-mind life also to become divine. And that is possible only with the next stage of evolution, the Superman. Okay? So now, these three lives that he is talking about, bodily life and a mental life and a spiritual life. He will give you the characteristics and we will pay special attention to what he is saying. He is very, very accurate. So, and then look at this, one sentence, one para. In ordinary nature, they have each their own characteristic and governing impulse. So, three paras. First para, what are the characteristics of a bodily life? Second, what are the characteristics of a mental life? And third, what are the characteristics of the spiritual life? So, let's do the characteristic energy of bodily life. What is its character? Okay, bodily life. It's very interesting. Is not so much in progress as in persistence. not so much in individual self-enlargement, but in self-repetition. Think of the bodily life. Human beings have a bodily life, but human beings also have a... So when he's speaking of bodily life, think of an animal. Not so much in progress. The idea of progress is not there at all in animals, but it is there in persistence. So it's a self-repetition. Reproduction, by reproduction. So that's a characteristic of the bodily life, self-repetition. There is indeed in physical nature a progression from type to type. He is talking of the mutation. A cat family will create different types of cat families. So there can be a progress, he is saying. But that is, it creates a type and gets fixed. It creates a type and gets fixed. That's not progress really. That's what he's saying. Okay? There is indeed in physical nature a progression. But progression is not progress. Okay? A progression from type to type, from the vegetable to the animal, from the animal to man. For even in inanimate matter, mind is at work. But once a type is marked off physically, the chief immediate preoccupation of the terrestrial mother seems to be to keep it in being by constant reproduction. This is very clear.
Yes.
It creates different species, but once a species is marked off as definite, it keeps it in existence by reproduction. So, self-repetition, self-reproduction. These are the characteristics. He will repeat that towards the end of the para. For life always seeks immortality. But since individual form is impermanent and only the idea of a form is permanent in the consciousness that creates a universe, for there it does not perish. Okay? The consciousness in the universe does not perish. For there it does not perish. Such constant reproduction is the only possible material immortality. Now he comes to the conclusion. Self-preservation, self-repetition, self-multiplication are necessarily then the predominant instincts of a material existence. So if you are at the bodily life, material existence, even men, they only want to further their family line, nothing more. Okay? I will have children. If I don't have children, it's a misery. I must have children to see that my family tree is continuing.
Without it, the line ends.
Yes, that's right. So, the bodily life, self-preservation. You preserve yourself. Self-repetition, self-multiplication are necessarily then the predominant instincts of a material existence. Now, self-preservation is very clear. You try to preserve yourself through many ways. Medicine, exercise, remaining healthy. Now, self-repetition and self-multiplication. I ask the children, what is the difference between self-repetition and self-multiplication? When an animal is reproducing itself, it can be two types. It can repeat itself or it can multiply itself.
I don't know about the animals, but from the vegetal world, a seed may have a specific intention to become exactly that tree. But if the DNA is not stable, it could be many different types of plants.
Okay, I think it's very simple. Self-repetition, a cat repeats itself and has kittens, and the cats are there. But multiplication, the population also is increasing. Self-reproduction.
I have self-enlargement as in self-repetition.
Yeah. Oh, that's in the next.
No, there is
Self-preservation, self-repetition, and self-multiplication are necessarily then the predominant instincts of a
Yes, down
material
here, I
existence.
got it. Yes, okay.
And there is an extra line, I think. Material life seems ever to move in a fixed cycle. You have the text?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I have to add that. Material life seems ever to move in a fixed cycle. That means the cats will reproduce themselves, the dogs will reproduce themselves. It's a constant cycle. So maybe
Material life.
Huh?
Material life.
Yes, material life.
Is it not also a spiral ascending?
That when mind
That's
comes
only
in.
when mind comes
Yeah,
in.
when
Yes.
mind comes in. Evolution is spiral. But bodily life is self-repetition. No idea of progress. The mental life, on the contrary, there is constantly progress and change. So, he has told you that the characteristic energy of bodily life is, remember this, self-preservation, self-repetition and self-multiplication. Okay? So, man therefore is only interested in preserving himself with money and whatever, and he wants to continue his line, okay, his lineage and self-multiplication. He must go on increasing his, are necessary and predominant instincts of all material, but not progress. Progress is not there in the material existence. It's a cycle, continuing cycle. Now we come to mind. The characteristic energy of pure mind is change, which is not there in the material existence. And the more it acquires elevation and organization, the more this law of mind assumes the aspect of a continual enlargement, improvement, and better arrangement of its gains, and so of a continual passage from a smaller and simpler to a larger and more complex perfection. This is the progress. The idea of progress is there in man when the mind comes in. For mind, unlike bodily life, is infinite in its field, elastic in its expansion, easily variable in its formations. Change then, self-enlargement, self-improvement are its proper instincts. Its faith is perfectibility, its watchword is progress. So, when mind comes in, it wants constantly improvement, change, not satisfied with status quo. It wants to improve itself. And this is true in man. He always wants to improve himself, whatever it is. Even an athlete wants to improve his performance. Okay? A doctor wants to know more and more about the body and conquer the diseases that are there. A scientist is not satisfied only with living on the physical world. He wants to go to the moon, he wants to go to Mars. So there is constantly an enlargement and a going beyond your change and progress.
And I have an additional line.
Okay?
Mind too moves in cycles, but these are ever enlarging spirals.
Yes. That's right.
Do you have that?
Yes, I have it. I have added that.
Oh, you've added it. Oh.
Mind too moves in cycles, but these are ever enlarging spirals. Now he is talking about
Yeah.
first the spirals are small, then it goes on. It's a sort of
And it may seem almost flat at times, but it's still a spiral.
That's right. So, we'll do the next one maybe next time, but so let's repeat what he's saying. Bodily life, no idea of change, only preservation, and for preservation there is multiplication and self-repetition. That's all. But when it comes to mind, it's the opposite of life, not self-preservation. Improvement, progress, change. There is no change there, it's only cycle. But here is an improvement and change. Then when you come to spiritual life, no change. It wants a static condition of perfection. It becomes again static. You go to the immutable self. No change there. So this is what he will tell you in the next one.
Very good. Thank you, Ranga.
We can do that next time.
Yes. Namaste. And thank you for attending.